The Panthers show the way. If you build it, they will come. And the Panthers end up crowned as the Stanley Cup kings. Is Florida a hockey state? At the moment, yes, sir. Also, Sixto Sanchez to the 60-day IL. Sounds like he might be on the comeback trail, but are we just avoiding the inevitable at this stage? Is Sixto Sanchez done with the Marlins? Tons to get into. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to an early morning Locked on Marlins. This is your team every day, and thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. I am your host. I forgot to introduce myself. I was getting ahead of myself. I'm your host, Peter Pratt, of course. Hit me up on Twitter at MiamiMarlins_UK. Reminder, if you're listening to the pod, make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review. This podcast is available everywhere you get your pods. And there is a YouTube channel, of course. Join me on the YouTube channel. It's also called Locked on Marlins. Hit subscribe over there too. Join me in the comments as well. Particularly, I want to hear from you, Panthers fans right now. How you feeling? How you celebrating? And what can the Marlins take from this Panthers success story? I think that is something I am extremely intrigued about. Before we get into tons today, tons. This episode is sponsored by our good friends over at PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Simply go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use the code, all lowercase, lockedonmlb for a first deposit match up to $100. And guys, there is tons to get into. And also, just a signpost, this is a double episode Wednesday. Hit it one first thing in the morning. There's then going to be another episode later on tonight. The UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, will be joining me. And this will be on the back of a UK-friendly Royals game for the Marlins. So there is plenty of Marlins content coming at you. The first question at this point is, are you even watching the Marlins at this point? And I can understand why some people would say no. Not because the team's not been great, not because any of that stuff. No. This is down to the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers end up getting the business done. They get the job done. Stanley Cup kings in Game 7. They took it down to the wire, no doubt about it. There were a few nervous moments and a few nervous, weeks, really, with this one. But the Florida Panthers finally crowned Stanley Cup champs. So, what I'd like to hear, and I'm going to need help on this topic, is what can the Marlins specifically learn from the Panthers' way? I have to call out that I am not, at the moment anyway, I'm not a hockey fan. I don't follow the hockey. I don't follow the Panthers specifically. And my knowledge, so I'm speaking without knowledge here. It's why I need you guys. I need you, I need to lean on you. And hopefully you can give me some insights here. From my ill-formed take on this one, because I don't watch the games, I don't follow the club closely. But clearly they've been on a run recently of sustained success where they're in the mix every year. They're in the hunt every year. And finally, that comes to fruition. It feels like it's been a long journey, though. It feels like there's been dark days with the Florida Panthers. This hasn't just been, a new franchise and straight away they're on it and winning championships. It feels like this process has been a long one. I don't know what the hallmarks of this process have been. So please let me know. Why are the Panthers where they are right now? In recent years, particularly while I've been closely following the Marlins, naturally there's some crossover on Twitter around Marlins fans and Panthers fans, which makes total sense. And what I'm seeing is, even in South Florida, where there's a lot of competition clearly, but the Panthers are pretty much selling out. Panthers is the vibe, has been the vibe for some time. My gut feel is it's because They're competitive. It's fun. They're trying to win. All of the things that we ask that the Marlins ownership commits to. And there may be things I'm missing. I don't know. But my general assessment is the ownership group is making a lot of the right moves. The fan base is acknowledging that. The fan base is showing up. And the fan base and the ownership group and the players, everyone is rewarded at this point with the Panthers taking the Stanley Cup. I know it sounds like I'm talking about hockey and I don't, and I've already called it out. I don't follow the Panthers specifically. I actually find hockey on TV a relatively challenging viewing experience. I find it pretty hard to follow the puck. And, when the main aspect of the game is to get a puck in the goal, and it's hard to see that when you're viewing on TV, it has to detract, right? It's hard to follow. The puck is relatively small. It moves very, very quickly. So I've just kind of struggled to get into hockey generally. Little known fact, though, I would say, is when I think about North American sports and where did Pete Pratt's journey start? Has he always been a baseball fan? Is that the only one? The answer to that is no. The first North American sport, if indeed we want to classify it as that I first got into was hockey. I was originally a hockey guy. When I was like maybe 11, 12, something in that kind of age range, I discovered roller hockey, inline hockey, however you want to phrase it. And there was a hockey team relatively nearby to me. I grew up in South Wales, and the nearest city to, the capital of Wales is Cardiff. And Cardiff had a rink, the Cardiff Devils. So in the region I grew up in South Wales, there's always been a degree of like ice hockey culture, let's say, because of the Cardiff Devils. And because of that, I think it spawned the roller hockey situation. And I heavily got into roller hockey at like 12 and played it pretty much through until I was like maybe 20, 21, like that kind of age, pretty much after, like through university or college, as maybe you describe it in the States. So through that, I then actually really got into watching hockey on TV. It wasn't easily accessible, I would say. This is like, 25 years ago. It wasn't easily accessible in terms of content. It's probably a lot easier to consume that right now. But nevertheless, when I think back to the teams that I followed, for some reason, I was drawn to the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't quite know why. I don't know why it was the Flyers. I probably had, an NHL game and the Flyers were probably good at the time, which kind of makes sense. But because I was playing a lot of roller hockey, you'd buy a few jerseys, right? So I had a Philly jersey. I know, shocker, right? I was a big fan of Eric Lindros. I mean, I'm turning back the clock now. Some people are probably listening going, who the hell are these guys? But I'm old. Eric Lindros. I also had a Phoenix Coyotes jersey as well. And for some reason, I was drawn to Jeremy Roenick. My brother played in goal. He was a big fan of Dominic Hasek, Marty Brodeur. So I was originally a hockey guy. I've been to Calgary. I've been to watch the Calgary Flames when I was young, maybe 15, 16. So it's always been there in me. I understand the game and I played it as well. But for whatever reason, in recent years, hasn't been the case. But I wanted to just let you know that there is some degree of knowledge deep within inside me somewhere around the hockey. But I haven't followed the Panthers. I'm delighted for the Marlins fans that also, because a lot of you guys listening to this episode right now will definitely be Panthers fans. You will definitely be pumped. I had people texting me, messaging me in the morning after that Panthers victory. Like US time, it was probably 4 or 5 in the morning, like on East Coast time. So that says to me, people were buzzed. They were buzzing. They were pumped. They were like super excited. And so congrats to you guys. When I think of the Panthers, specifically, I don't know any of the players. I see some of the names, but I don't really know any of the players and don't follow it closely. So when I think of the Panthers, the one person that comes to my mind is Jess Blaylock. That's who I think of. I know Jess kind of like, straddles both sports really, does Panthers, and then when the Panthers are cooked, or victorious in this case, moves over and covers the Marlins as well. So I think of Jess Blaylock And I think, unfortunately for Jess this time around, I say unfortunately, but I believe she missed game 7 live because she was flying to Italy for a wedding. So unfortunately for Jess, after everything she's invested into it, she ends up missing this situation for probably a friend's wedding in Italy. Gut feel is for Jess Blaylock, and already it has been, Chianti season, it has been Brunello season, it has been Negroni season. I'm sure she's having a lot of fun in Italy. I've been to a wedding in Italy as well once before, and boy, oh boy, it was extraordinary. So to round this bad boy off, this first segment, we're going to hit the ad in a sec, but I just wanted to call out and congratulate the Panthers. It feels to me like there are things that the Marlins organization can take away from the Panthers. I know it isn't always easy to, translate one sport to the other, but one thing is the same, and it's the market. Another thing is the same, is the franchises are relatively both new in their relevant sports. And the Marlins have already won 2 World Series before. That's a long time ago, though, now. But they have been victorious themselves. The Panthers now finally victorious as well. And I think the build and the methodology in recent years is maybe something that the Marlins ownership group can turn to, can look at. And in reality, maybe this is the blueprint for Peter Bendix, the sustained success methodology. And if that is what you deliver on the field, it's maybe what you get back in terms of fan base, and I guess eventually taking home another World Series for the Marlins. Right, we're going to talk some proper Marlins baseball shortly. Please do let me know your thoughts, though, on this one. I'm very intrigued. I need to talk about Roddery Munoz, who went on Monday. Roddery Munoz, Skip Schumacher called it out, said, at times he can outstuff you. To any non-baseball person, this sentence makes no sense. But in baseball language, it makes total sense. We need to talk about the lefty issues from an offensive standpoint as well, because right now it seems like the Marlins are on a historical pace against left-handed starters. Equally, there's some pitching news coming up as well, linked to Sixto Sanchez, Edward Cabrera. Also want to touch on Max Meyer and, well, his lack of recall. So before we do that, it is time to firstly let you know about our good friends over at the Tax Network. Yes, sir. And guys, here at Locked On Marlins, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. They have over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau. Triple B. Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Yes, you heard that right. That was $1 billion. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. See the link in this episode description below. And guys, delighted to let you know this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at SupplyHouse. And you can get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Get expert support with industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. pros in the skilled trades can also get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM. And order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. All right, guys, welcome back to Wednesday's episode, part one of Wednesday's episode of Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Congrats again to the Florida Panthers Stanley Cup Kings. Great to see. I think there's some learnings that the Marlins organization can take from the Panthers and the way that they have run things in recent years. Interested to see how they go next year. Is there any hangover for the Panthers? No doubt there will be some hangovers right now for some of the players. I've seen the Stanley Cup in all sorts of precarious positions. I think it's been in the sea, it's been in dive bars, it's been everywhere. Like the guys embracing it, having fun. Love to see it. Let's talk about some Marlins news here. Roddery Munoz went on Monday. And Skip Schumacher after the game was asked around Roddery Munoz. And, you know, every time with Roddery, you get similar results at the moment. And I think what's clear, and Skip Schumacher called this out, is the stuff of Roddery is super impressive. There's a lot of movement in his pitches. Like, he has a very interesting arsenal, I would say. The challenge that Roddery is dealing with at this point is a similar one a few years ago to Elieser Hernandez. Lilo Hernandez. Do you remember Elieser? Old friend of the show. Old friend of a Swedish home improvements manufacturer. And, for Roddery Munoz, the long ball is a serious problem. He gave up 3 home runs against the Royals on Monday. 3 home runs. He's up to 14 home runs given up. I thought, okay, how does this compare? It feels like a lot of home runs. How does this compare to, say, Sandy Alcantara in his Cy Young year? I went to look at Sandy, right? Like in his nearly 230 innings of work. Like, what did Sandy give up? And he did give slightly more than 14. I think it was 16. But even so, Roddery is giving up home runs like no man's business. Skip Schumacher believes it's at times he gets a little bit, down in the count and ends up having to throw, the wrong pitch at the wrong time, let's say. And maybe that's at the root cause here. But yeah, like I mentioned, Skip calls it out. He can outstuff you, this guy. That is not English, apart from baseball. This is baseball language. He can outstuff you at times. And he absolutely can. And the way the Marlins pitching is shaping up, Roddery is going to continue to have opportunities here within the rotation for as long as he's healthy and as long as he's performing. To be honest, he's one of the most exciting pitchers. I find when I watch Roddery, I'm excited to see what we get. Yes, there's home runs, and that's not optimal. But I think if he can limit the home run, if he can tweak things, I really truly believe that I believe there's a ton of untapped upside that sits in Roddery Munoz. I really believe that. I think, we've seen that. The strikeout, the swing and miss, the stuff is real with Roddery. Limit the home runs, and the Marlins really have another pitcher on their hands. It seems like they can't stop doing this, right? They find these guys, minor little moves, and this is a Peter Bendix move. So we have to, again, applaud in some ways Peter Bendix for these little minor moves that are being made. They're not huge. They're not uber exciting at the moment. But what we're seeing is, again, like with Declan Cronin, Otto Lopez, we're seeing major contributors for the Marlins this year that were acquired for effectively nothing. And for me, that's encouraging, super encouraging for Peter Bendix and for the future for the Marlins. They need to augment this with a core But if you can sprinkle the core with little freebies that maybe right now it's maybe about moving these guys. But we're going to have a lot of talk around the deadline over the next month, to be honest with you. So Roddery Munoz for me continues to be impressive. Yoni Chirinos went yesterday. The Marlins ended up getting the win. They found a way to win 2-1. I think the Royals, it was self-inflicted from the Royals, but nevertheless, the Marlins get it done. Yoni Chirinos twirling it. I mean, this Marlins rotation doesn't look anything like it was supposed to. Nevertheless, I think we have to continue to look to Skip Schumacher and just highlight the job that he's doing, even when the record is cooked, even when Peter Bendick signaled this is the end of the campaign in the first week of May, even dealing with all those things, Skip Schumacher's managed to keep the guys going. The guys look motivated still. They're not just trundling around and, season's cooked and going through the motions maybe. Like, there's going to be lulls. There's always lulls in a long season. But the general sense I get from the Marlins is everyone still cares. Everyone's still up for it. They're winning series now at this point. They can win another series. This could be 3 series in a row against the Cardinals that are kind of in the hunt. Obviously, the Royals are in the mix too. And the Mariners are absolutely in the hunt. So all of a sudden, they're winning series against teams that, in this year, by the record anyway, are good. And so with that being said, again, you have to look to Skip Schumacher. Sets the tone. Everyone's accountable. Everyone knows the standard. And that blends nicely into Sixto Sanchez. Move to the 60-day IL. Sixto Sanchez. He is throwing. He's scheduled to throw a bullpen. So we're going to talk more about Sixto and another pitcher who is very close, I feel, to making a return. Before we do that, it's time to let you know about our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Are you part of that 5 million? If not, listen up, guys. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. So you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000. And if you're looking for promotions, PrizePicks has got you covered every week. From lowering select players' stats projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So all you have to do is download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDON for a first deposit match up to $100. That's Locked On MLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Welcome back to the final segment here with me, Peter Pratt, on Wednesday's Locked On Marlins. It's going to be a double header today. Apologies, there was no Tuesday episode. I watched a bit of England. For those that are following the Euros, England, boy, oh boy, it's tough watch, right? Man, oh man. England are lacking creativity, invention, pace, everything that you hope to see. England are lacking it. However, they win the group. So sometimes the group stage is all about doing enough. England have done enough. They've qualified. They top the group. The side of the draw they're on now avoids some of the real big boys and big threats. So actually England, if they can get it going, they absolutely have a chance to get back to the Euros final and maybe go one stage further this year. So after some England action, I then went and played some tennis action. As you know, I've been playing a lot of tennis the last couple of years. Anyway, I had a friendly game against the #1 player in the club, in my club anyway. And it's been a struggle against him, I would say, in recent games. But I came out victorious yesterday evening. However, I finished that game local time, 11 p.m. By the time I was home, showered, and et cetera, et cetera, it was more like midnight. So apologies, no episode yesterday, doubleheader today. Let's talk about Sixto Sanchez, though, who has been transferred to the 60-day IL. This is because the Marlins have acquired another arm. I mean, they need the arms. But Sixto to the 60-day IL. My initial reaction here was, okay, is this the Avisail Garcia treatment? Is Sixto going to be stashed on the IL for the rest of the year, much like Avisail Garcia last year, where performance isn't good enough? For whatever reason, you leave Avisail on the 60-day like last year. Could Sixto be getting the same treatment? And really, the question has to be is whether the Marlins should be just making the decision sooner. Like the Avisail Garcia situation was one that was obvious. We've ended up in the situation we all expected to be in. Finally, the Marlins make the move. Sixto Sanchez, I think when the day comes, considering, again, the wrath of Skip Schumacher publicly for Sixto Sanchez, to me says his time with the Marlins is done. It isn't just Skip's words. It's Sixto's performance. It's everything linked to Sixto Sanchez. Our man Craig Mish, the closest to it. He knows the situation. He knows. We know that he knows, that Sixto knows, that everyone knows that Sixto's cooked. And for the Marlins, it feels like he's out of time. Yes, he's throwing a bullpen tomorrow, whatever it might be. But for me, it feels irrelevant at this stage. Sixto has no future with the Marlins. And for me, it feels like it's time for the Marlins just to finally end this situation. However, the move that they made to the 60-day IL, it was relatively administrative. Sixto isn't near to being back anyway. He's been out for some time. And frankly, he can't help the team. So no major surprises. My gut feel at this juncture is Sixto Sanchez will never throw for the Marlins again. A guy that I think will be throwing for the Marlins in the early part of July is Edward Cabrera. He has had a couple of rehab starts that have looked mightily impressive by the box score and a couple of little clips that I've seen. Nevertheless, Eddie Cabrera coming back maybe at just the right time. Spoke on Monday's episode around Jesus Luzardo, how that injury completely impacts the strategy for Bendix at this deadline. The interesting part now is if Eddie Cabrera is back, can put a few decent starts together, is he going to be maybe the headline guy from a pitching perspective that's moved? I feel like with Eddie Cabrera, people dream on the upside. They dream on everything. You know, when it's there and like for a few innings worth of work, it looks so good. But there's always that one inning, that one blow-up inning where he walks the bases juiced and anything can happen. It's frustrating, but I could see teams dreaming on that. The question is can the Marlins extract value from that profile? Frankly, if I was another GM, I would probably be looking at Roddery Munoz and thinking, I think this guy can help more than Eddie Cabrera. That's my honest assessment here. Like, I know Eddie's got good stuff. I think Roddery Munoz has better stuff than Eddie Cabrera. That's what my eyes tell me. It's not what the stats do. Maybe the stats do say that as well. But, Roddery does have a home run issue. If he can fix that, then for me, maybe there's a greater level of upside with Roddery Munoz over Edward Cabrera. Nevertheless, it's going to be good to get Eddie back. At the moment, the Marlins are digging so deep in their rotation. They have a guy, of course, it's a UK-friendly start. And of course, the Marlins have a guy going that I've never even heard of before. I believe he was acquired via the Jacob Amaya minor move, right? So this kind of sums it up, right? The Marlins, DFA, Jacob Amaya, he's free. They make a minor move with the Astros and get back a pitcher. This is the guy from that deal, Belozo. So we're looking forward to seeing Belozo on the mound. He hasn't really set it alight in AAA. We'll wait to see what we can see, but most likely UK-friendly Belozo, things could get blown up quickly. But I've never seen the guy. No judgment at this point. We're going to be recapping Velozo's start against the Kansas City Royals. Can the Marlins win another series and go 3 series on the spin against 3 contenders? We're going to have that all covered with the UK GOAT later on today in a Locked On Marlins doubleheader. And I'll see you then.